Shivani, no. Because I want everyone that has the same situation as me to be able to come forward and know that they can get help. Well, my aunt did told me something about it. She was telling me that I could get help, but I didn't thought that I had all the evidence necessary to get the help. Like when my husband left me without money, and I was pregnant at the moment, and he didn't support me, so that made me come forward. Well, I stopped because my husband persuaded me to go back, because I left him at the moment, and he persuaded me to go back, and he promised me he was going to change. And well, he did promise he was going to change, everything was going to be okay, and I trusted that, but it was not like that. But my husband took my kid out of the country. Well, he actually asked me if he can take him out of the country for a wedding, and I told him it was okay, only for a week. And then days passed, school started. That was right after Christmas. School started, and I started getting calls from the school asking me, is the kid returning? Then I start calling my husband, and he started to say that the kid was sick and he couldn't bring him back. He had to keep him out there for 6 months. And I called the school to explain to them, saying that, well, the kid is sick, he's going to be out there for a few days. And that's when I found out that he had already called the school and told them that they can go ahead and take him off the enrollment because he was not coming back to the country. I was searching in Google one morning, and I just typed like best law office or best attorney in Texas, and your name came up, and that's when I went for it. Well, I went to different offices before I came to yours, and the first thing was always about money, and I knew at the moment I didn't have it and I needed help. So when I came to your office, you talked to me and you listened to my situation, and money was the last thing we talked about, and that made me feel like, well, he actually cares about my situation. When I first came, I didn't feel like I had a strong case because I was talking to a friend, and she was telling me, like, you need to have bruises, you need to have evidence that he beats you and stuff like that. And I was like, well, I don't have any bruises on me to prove that he beat me or anything. But then when I spoke to you, you also told me that there's different types of abuse that I didn't even know about, but I had went through all of those abuses that you explained to me. I felt relieved. Well, because there's a lot of tricky questions on the forms, and you actually need an attorney that knows what he's doing for you to get the necessary help. So I wouldn't have done it by myself because it's a lot of paperwork, and well, y'all just did the best for me. So well, I understand the fear because I was scared at the moment, but you don't have to be scared when you have a lawyer, because you can have all your mails and all your paperwork at the office. You don't have to have anything in your house, so there's no way he can find out if you do it through an attorney. I wouldn't recommend to do it by yourself. Like I said before, you need an attorney to help you, because like a lot of time, like me, in my case, I didn't know that I had different types of abuse, as there's a lot of things on the application that can be pretty confusing, and only an attorney can explain that to you. Like in my case, it was pretty confusing for me, and I kept asking questions, and I was happy that I was able to get those questions answered. I would say gather all your evidence. Anything is a proof. Any little thing, even the minor thing that you think is not a proof, is a proof. So gather all your evidence and go forward for it.
Andrew. No. I just wanted to share part of my story about what I went through, how I had a massive amount of doubt going into everything, probably throughout the entire process, right up until now, when I can physically touch it. And I wanted to share how highly qualified and helpful David was in helping me through the entire process. Just wanted to share my story about that. I took a couple of other meetings with other lawyers who mentioned it to me, but mentioned it to me in a way that told me that this is out there, but you can't, this wouldn't be an avenue for you. So then I researched what it was, and then I came across yourself, and then spoke to you about it, and then that's when I found out more about my experience and the fact that it was actually an avenue that I could pursue, that you were highly qualified in knowing something about that nobody else seemed to be aware of, in the fact that I could still keep my original application going. I didn't have to start from scratch, and actually I was able to go down that route. So before that I wasn't even aware of it. I just became aware of it through speaking about my experience before. I was on that website, is it AVVO? I'm not sure how you say it, but I was scrolling through. I think I contacted maybe 5 or 6, and I would say these are 5 or 6 immigration lawyers that I would say they give off the impression that they're very experienced, they're commanding high fees, and they just kind of they kind of spoke down to me, laughed off my want to try and find more information about my options, told me that I basically didn't have very many options at all, if any. So I would say, I've probably searched that website and then maybe 5 or 6 before I came to yourself. So she was a female attorney, and she basically, I described my situation and told her, actually, that was a call that I was already aware of the VAWA route, and I spoke to her about it, and she had just immediately shut me down, saying, in not directly, but in so many words, made me feel like just because I'm a guy that there was just no chance for this to happen because of that dynamic, and I was elaborating on my relationship circumstances, and to be honest, she made me feel like really that there was no hope for me because I was a guy and I was trying to apply for an act that in her mind was created for women, and men shouldn't really, they don't really have a right to go after it. So I was married. I married an American citizen, and we got married pretty quickly, I guess you could say. But love at first sight. I didn't get married for a green card. I got married because I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this woman. I didn't apply for my green card for 2 years because of my work. I was in and out of the country the whole time. And then, the relationship after probably about a year started to get very difficult, very bad. Her being the American citizen, she, her name was on everything. I was under her with my credit. Her name was on the phones, her name was on the credit card, the apartment, the cars. And it's not something you think about until something goes wrong. And her behavior was extremely manipulative. If I didn't walk the perfect path with when to get home from work, or not to travel, or not to go with these people, she would cut me off. She would shut the credit card down. She would shut the phone down. She would be micromanaging every single detail. And in itself, one situation isn't a lot, but when it's daily and it's every single angle of your life, and you're being made aware that you have to do certain things and you can't live your life freely, it just becomes very exhausting, and you start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder why. I looked at myself. I thought I was causing her to do this, rather than going to her because she was telling me it was me. So I was constantly looking at myself, and it just turned out to be probably 1.5 to 2 years of just abuse in a whole range of different ways. One time, with 0 police records, it was violent, but the majority of it was mental and emotional. And part of the problem that the big doubt that I had being a guy was, how do I share my story on that, because it's such a big gray area. I believed going into this that you had to have massive amount of police records, you had to have had, you know, something drastic like that on that side, the physical side, for you to be successful. But, you know, it turns out that you don't. You share your story, you be truthful about what you've been through, and well, here I am now, and I feel vindicated going through my situation. This is a really proud moment for me, because I was, you know, in a relationship with someone that was manipulative to stop me from getting to this situation, with how calculated she was when she was trying to go through the divorce. She tried to time it so I would be removed and I would be completely uprooted from here. So this is it's a really vindicating moment. And I would say probably a year and a half ago, I'd be like bawling my eyes out, you know, expressing this. It's hard because it's such an emotional thing to talk about, but I'm 2.5 years on from that, and it's still very raw, but it's just a really proud moment for me right now. You know, through my job, I coach professional tennis players, and you meet a lot of people, and I'd like to say I'm a good judge of character, and I go after not necessarily someone's credentials, but how they are as a person. I think if, you know, with this application and how much trust I needed to install in the person that was going to be helping me, but also share and open up details about stuff that I didn't even understand, and it was extremely personal. I didn't want to be sharing that with someone that I didn't think was a good person or above, you know, had this, you know, high commanding fee and had been doing this and that and saying whatever with their lawyer credentials. I went after a person, and you just came across as a really personable, caring individual who was going to go to bat for me, and that's the bottom line. But then on top of that, you also were extremely intelligent and knowledgeable about my specific application, and showing me things to do with that other lawyers who were telling me that, by the way, you can't do this, but you also had additional information that they weren't aware of, that saved me thousands of dollars, probably saved me years, and has led me to this situation. So initially I just went off gut of how you were as a person, and also the information that you showed to me that was more knowledgeable than other people were giving me. I mean, ecstatic. I mean, been waiting probably feels like 3 years to be in this situation. How do you explain, you know, how do you put into words where, you know, the whole time I'm applying for something that other lawyers have told me that I have no chance to do. You're the only person that has my back in this situation. We've, you know, gone through everything with a fine-tooth comb, sent it off, and I'm still telling myself this isn't going to happen. You know, you're staying positive. I'm like, yeah, but this isn't going to happen. And then, you know, randomly one day, after I've, you know, I feel like and you also said I've put together a really solid individual petition for myself, I get an email saying it's been accepted. And then I'm thinking, well, okay, but then I have to go through this whole process. And then a couple of days ago, I get the email saying that I don't, you know, it's been approved and I don't need to go through the interview process, so it speeds up. And now I physically have the green card. Yeah, one of the best feelings that I've had personally. Waiting for just a, you know, piece of plastic is kind of a little odd, given that it's shaping the, you know, probably the rest of my life here, which is what I want to do. I can now go back to my full traveling job. I can start to really settle down, set some roots down here in America without any restrictions. I mean, it is life-changing. You can't put a price on it. You can't, there's not one word to describe it, but I'm absolutely like ecstatic with this situation I'm in right now. So I didn't tell my spouse at the time, even though she, you know, had chosen to try to divorce me behind my back. I didn't mention any of it to her. I was very concerned that she was going to find out and try to carry on her manipulative behavior to take it away from me. But as you assured me, And I've seen throughout the whole process, once you apply, there's absolutely, during the whole process, it's set up that the person that you're with, the abusive person, can't take anything away from you. They can't do anything to do with the application. Anything that you're saying is confidential. They can't find out. They're not going to get interviewed about anything. So, I would say feel confident to share your story, feel confident to speak to yourself and apply, knowing that there's nothing that the person can do to take anything away from you. You're trying to get your own independence as an individual, as you deserve, and they can't do anything about that. Do not do that. There are so many. I was going through a divorce. I was trying to understand what I was going through myself, and I had to file a document to basically articulate every fine detail to do with my relationship, to describe the emotional abuse, to describe the physical, to describe all of that side. And even as I would be typing things up, yourself in your office would come back with things, and I remember sending off my very first draft thinking, I've done a pretty solid job here, and there's just like corrections all over the place. And I think I sent off to you, my original one may have been maybe 10 pages, and it ended up being probably a 56-page document that was filled with insight that I wouldn't have had from yourself. So I would highly recommend that they do not do it, because there's outside eyes and ears from the information that you share, as long as you're honest with yourself, that they can add, and it's adding value, it's adding insight, and there's so many hurdles that the legal language is very hard to understand. It makes it seem very daunting. It makes it seem like you don't have a clue what you're doing with all of the numbers and the filings and the documents and how to keep them safe. I would just say don't do it. It's well worth paying the money to get proper legal help from yourself to get to the stage.
At David Nguyen's law office, we are here to help you. We bring families together through immigration. And on the other hand, we help you find solutions. All your legal needs in the hands of people who care, who are there for you. We'll take care of your loved ones at the law office of David.